All right. So September 2021 is when I came back. The first month I was not here, man. I was still getting over. Do you ever get over something that was important to you, especially when you feel like you didn't read? I don't know, man. I felt like I could. They say animals teach us a whole lot. What they teach us is basically it teaches us more about death than we think. They teach us more about treating the living, about engaging with life. It's a lot, man. It was like the first month that I came back, I was really not here. And I was not here and it was horrible. It was like upsetting. My mind was just not really processing the best of things. I couldn't see Liberia in a positive light. I couldn't see my life over there in a positive light. I had forgotten all the good times I had, and I had like all I could remember was like the gloomy days, the stressed out days, the upsetting days. And granted, like you go through a lot in almost anything you do, and the ups and downs, right? But that was like a drastic change for me. Like after 9 years and 10 months, like moving back was strong. And even though I said that I wanted to come back, like chill for a bit and then go back, I really knew I was not coming back. I knew the day I was leaving, I was like, please just let me just be anywhere and safely. And the minute I get there, then I'll actually start basically processing what's going on. A lot was happening, a lot. Though the one thing in my head that kind of like stuck was if I were to accomplish anything, just do anything, move anywhere, I literally just need to consistently every day give it something, give it some part of myself every day, every day, every day. And that was like a thing that was happening with me the past like 3 years in the last 3 years of West Africa, Liberia. What I was doing was every single day I was contributing 5 to 10 minutes of my day, up to 20 minutes to an hour, towards everything, including like music, including writing, including reading. I was trying to be consistent with a whole lot of things that basically would pile on top of each other because I had completely lost touch with how you learn and evolve into something new. And I think that's the bigger issue when you become an adult because you forget, like in school, you were always kind of like breaking your mind and entering a new state. And then when you enter a new state, it becomes normal. And then you have to kind of break it again and enter a new state. And that experience kind of gets killed as an adult, or at the very least, when you graduate, you feel like you've succeeded. And that's not really like the measurement of success is graduating. A measurement of success is what you learned, how are you going to apply it, if it sticks with you, if you're able to like take it to different places. So I was re-establishing those in my mind, rebuilding those patterns in my head, and re-diving into these kinds of like concepts that allow you to feel differently than you did the day before simply because you've added one extra thing to whatever it is that you were. And for me, that was huge. Why? Because I had for the longest time not been actually present with what I was going through. I was completely interacting with the outside world, and if nothing was happening in the outside world, I would literally create something. And that's where the whole closing 9 companies comes from. Because like I literally would just like anytime there's peace, instead of enjoying the peace, I would go and start new stuff. And yeah, the more stuff you the more you fuck up, the more shit you do, the more you fuck up, the more you basically learn. And basically, it's just when the time came for me to like to when the time came for me to actually look at what's going on. Here we go. It jumped at the moment where I was feeling like a bit insecure. When the time came for me to reflect, when the time came for me to kind of go like, oh, okay, so like maybe I should consider the things that I've been doing the past 1, 2, 3, 10 fucking years. I had to go back 10 years, and that was a bit heavy. So the first thing I started doing when I actually like kind of came out of myself, and it was like November 2021, was I started basically applying for searching for coding schools, talking to people that do code, and just like walking around Lebanon, Beirut, and just seeing what kind of like scene was around this environment. And so I found a few places, I messaged them, and one of them accepted me for like a first preliminary like computer science course. It was amazing because I learned a lot from that. I learned principles of programming, and I got to find some people, and I hired some people to coach me and work with me and teach me, and it was also fun. And then after that, I was accepted to the full stack course, which I didn't complete, and that was May 2022. And in the full stack course, I was asked to actually come up with an idea, and in order to build it as a full stack JS, as an actual project. And as I was working on the idea, I started developing more into a network. Again, like I couldn't help it; it's a network. And as it was developing from the different side of society, because in Lebanon you actually have like shops. You actually over there it was more like trying to connect individual people and whatever they're trying to build on a daily basis. They had like their markets that were moving with them. But here it was more physical places. So I got to think of the same idea of the network from a different angle. And the first thing I started thinking about was how I would be able to kind of like build the community around them. And then from there, it started like diving deeper into like where the communities are connected and how communities are connected to different nodes on the network. And so, I mean, like, the best way I can explain what my preliminary idea for that bootcamp was that if there were restaurants and you would want to go dine at a certain place, what would the restaurant that you would want to dine with be? And ultimately, it's I would rather dine at a farm to table, for example, restaurant or organic farming, organic produce restaurant. If you were to go for a shop that sells clothes, you would want basically the shop to have come from a certain farmer, cotton, pure cotton, right? Like all of these that are new things, like in this world, the people that are working within society. And that's the beauty because, like, right now, I had to consider the different lifestyles in society and what are the ones that I want to actually like engage with because I have to think of the penetration into the market and where the actual market where my market starts and how it would expand. So my research towards the actual like product started becoming more and more like necessary and started creating the different fields that I need to like dive into. But by that point, I really should have only concerned myself with the programming. And let's just say that tutors that were supposed to guide me in the programming part, they weren't. They were they didn't do anything wrong, man. I insist they didn't do anything wrong, but they didn't care if I made it or not. For them, their job is to support whoever has more of a chance to make it. And it's fucked up. I don't think it's fair because, in all honesty, like creativity, like you can't. I really was thinking right now about would you ever push a flower to open up? And can you actually force some form of like a creative method of understanding? Can you force it on someone? You can't. Like I can learn a language in a couple of days, but to be able to speak it, I need to practice it. I need to process my mind. I need to experience the culture. And a whole lot of stuff were involved. And for them, all they cared about was to actually graduate programmers within a period of 3 months. Uh, it was very stressful those 2 months. It was intense. But when I finished, I was like, okay, so now that I've gotten this far in my coding, I want to build my fucking platform. And so I started building with whatever I have, and I started researching different kinds of like tools to use online. And the more I do that, the more my platform kind of starts changing. And this is basically and ultimately, until I started realizing that the programming itself is irrelevant unless you actually have something to code and program. And the whole concept behind what to build and what to initiate is very much required as the core of any code you write because I just could not understand. Okay, let me try to explain it this way. I could not understand what people meant. Like you can build a website in a million ways. I couldn't understand it because in my head, to code something, you have to be very articulate. But then when I started realizing like you can get different results by writing different functions that do different things and respond in different ways, when that started clicking in my head, then I started understanding the power of actually programming, and I started basically understanding the art behind it. Like I knew it was an art form. I knew like it's if it's something that's been over 60, 70 years building slowly, slowly on top of itself. Like it's fucking beautiful. There's something like ridiculous. I saw how people like make charts. I saw how people, sorry, architect different softwares and the way they discuss it. It was an art form in my head. I just could not imprint it. And it took me a while. It took me about like 4 months to like 6 months for me to finally understand what it actually was and to finally understand that like how far the details and tentacles go and what exactly do frameworks do and how they work and what's the protocol and concepts of the web. And it took me a while, but through that I actually started by November 22, after being back like for a year and like a month or 2 months. I was the first time I actually sat with somebody and we started working on my idea. And those were 5 months that were super intense as well. But hey, next video. Thank you for listening.